Yes.
And then they release their weapons.
Yes, that is the Israelis. The Americans, they operate a little bit differently. They are operating on the fringes of the core of the Iranian air defense system and mostly using JDAMs. These are more or less free-fall bombs, but they have GPS assistance. So they are quite precise, no doubt about this. But they are not flying 200 kilometers far.
So they're very precise, but they don't have such long range.
Yes, so they are striking different targets. For Khorramabad, for example, that is relatively easy. That is why it was important to hit this base. Why I'm all the time asking around who has hit this base and with what.
Let's try to pull out. Let's just try to pull out the map of Iran and the areas that have been hit on the wall, so we can have a look at some of those targets. But yes, you were going to ask a question.
We've got some more breaking news that's coming in, where the International Atomic Energy Agency has stated that based on the analysis of latest available satellite imagery, the IAEA sees no damage to facilities containing nuclear material in Iran and therefore no radiological release risk at this time. They've also said near Isfahan nuclear site, the damage is visible at 2 buildings, no additional impact detected at Natanz, and previously reported damage at entrances and no impact at other nuclear sites, including Bushehr as well as NPP. So
that's a big relief.
That's a big relief.
It's a big relief.
Huge relief.
Yes, it's a huge relief because there were apprehensions that there might have been actually strikes that might have hit some of those cores. Yes. Now, you were talking about Kermanshah and
Khorramabad, which is approximately here.
Okay.
This is one of the biggest missile bases in Iran. There are actually 4. This is a complex of 4 brigades housing 4 bases housing 2 brigades. And this was most heavily hit the last 2 days.
So these are being hit by JDAMs?
I guess also by JDAMs, yes.
I see.
Because the place is meanwhile on the fringe, because as the pressure from US and Israeli Air Force grew, the Iranian air defenses slowly retreated eastwards. So therefore, I guess that they are now free enough to strike Khorramabad, for example, with JDAMs. And one of the JDAMs, this is particularly important, because one of the JDAMs is the bunker buster version with BLU-109 bunker buster warhead. This means this is supposed to go really 50-60 meters deep to under the ground.
So how many of these, because if the Americans are feeling the need now to go back to manufacturers and try to get them to manufacture more of these weapons, how many of these weapons would have been already used by America? What's your estimate?
Well, they're talking about several thousand that have been expanded. So this is probably the number of warheads. The stockpile of warheads is relatively large. It is not the problem. The problem are these kits that are converting dumb bombs or conventional bombs, general purpose bombs, high explosive bombs, however you want to call them, into guided ammunition.
Right.
I've shown it yesterday on different artworks. If it's possible to show them now, it would be easier to explain. But generally, you have the warhead of the weapon, and then you put the guidance kit on one side, and the other side is the steering mechanism. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that way you create a smart bomb.
Right.
And manufacturing smart bombs takes awfully lots of time. It takes, for example, to ramp up production can easily take 2 years.
Wow. So we're looking at the Americans now thinking about a scenario where this war might extend and they needing to replenish their weapons.
Alternatively, they could reach back upon countries manufacturing weaponry of US design under license, for example, Saudi Arabia or South Korea. It might help them.
Okay, so you're saying that they might give contracts to both Saudi Arabia and South Korea to manufacture under license some of these weapon systems, or to Pakistan also. Wow.
We're getting more updates which are coming in from the war zone, where the IDF has struck an underground Hezbollah weapon storage facility and additional command centers in Beirut. Over the past day, the IDF has conducted a wave of strikes in Beirut targeting Hezbollah infrastructure. So it seems that they're taking the fog of war to completely eradicate Hezbollah at some level by pushing into southern Lebanon. Traditional Israeli IDF forces have moved into southern Lebanon.
Let me bring in Daniel Karmon on that point. Hezbollah remains this outlier. The Iranians are trying to now resort to using proxies like they have done. Do you see this as a challenge, or do you think the Hezbollah factor is overrated? Mr. Karmon, if you're still there with us, thank you.
I'm here, and it's not overrated at all. I just want to remind you that 2-3 weeks ago, the Lebanese government, who is opposing the continued presence of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, has announced that game over, issue solved, no Hezbollah south of the Litani or something like that. And it didn't happen. And they started as a proxy of Iran, looking very cautiously at what's happening in the war. They decided, and Hezbollah decided to fire. The whole night was, until an hour or two ago, they continued firing alerts all over northern Israel. Hezbollah is there. Hezbollah is a danger, and Hezbollah made the biggest mistake of its existence, because that's the reasoning for pushing it and eliminating it as much as we can. It's not to be taken easy.
Well, viewers, there are different scenarios. There are different scenarios. Iranians are going to use different tools to try and put pressure on, in fact, the Israelis and the Americans. You've got more updates.
Which are coming in. Fresh Iran strikes on the Saudi Aramco refinery, ladies and gentlemen. Oil refinery site has been targeted once again. The second strike on the refinery in the last 3 days. This will send shockwaves across the energy markets once again as the oil infrastructure in Saudi Arabia has been targeted. But another big news that's coming in.
We don't have pictures of that,
right.
do we? We don't have pictures.
We'll try to get those, Rahul will try to get those visuals. But this is the big update that's coming in the neighborhood. In our neighborhood, big updates which are coming in. A submarine attack on an Iranian ship is what we are learning. An Iranian ship was targeted near the Sri Lankan coast. And the Lankan Navy has launched rescue operations. 35 people have been rescued. Over 60 are missing. This Iranian ship had 180 crew on board. So a submarine attack on an Iranian ship near the coast of Sri Lanka. So this is entering our theater as well.
What's going on? I mean, who are these people? Was this just a normal cargo vessel belonging to an Iranian carrier? What was it doing by Sri Lanka? What's happening here, Tom Cooper? What do you think is happening? Why are the Iranians fishing in Sri Lankan waters?
I'm trying to set up the map so I can show you.
That's way off.
Sri Lanka is down here.
Yes, Sri Lanka is down here.
Every ship of every possible nation has the right to travel along the sea. That's not a problem.
True.
So the question is now who has attacked this ship?
And what was it carrying? Was it carrying material from China?
I don't know.
We don't know
the
why
name
would
of the
it have
ship
been
or
attacked?
something
Do we
else.
have any details?
Right, we'll try to get some more details, but these are the updates which are coming in. But it's very interesting to see that the Naval Force of the Revolutionary Guard has destroyed the American strategic radar FPS-132 in West Asia in Qatar. This has happened at dawn today. So we can see an escalation of the operations in that region. But it's very concerning if these operations are also spreading over to the Indian Ocean.
So do we know?
They're claiming the destruction of this radar since the first day. And now there are satellite photographs confirming that it was hit. Where it was destroyed is a different story.
Actually, let's pull out those photographs, those satellite photographs that we have been showing our viewers. Those are the X-rays, really, of those strikes. So then we can tell you exactly what has happened, how much damage has been caused. So let's pull that out, Director Saab, and put it on the wall behind me. But in the meantime, I just want to ask you this. What and who has targeted this Iranian vessel? Do we know? Whose submarine is it? Is it the American submarine? Is it a British submarine? Is it an Indian submarine?
More details are awaited on that front, but the fact that an
news.
Iranian vessel has been targeted near the Sri Lankan coast, given the situation in the Middle East, is something that will send alarm across the Indian intelligence as well as security apparatus.
It's now also freeing Iran to retaliate in fashion. And it still has submarines.
This Iranian ship had 180 crew on board, 35 people have been rescued. The Lankan Navy has launched those rescue operations. We'll get more details as more and more updates coming in on this.
I've been reading about that, but there's such little clarity on what went down there, because why would somebody target a vessel with 180 people? What kind of vessel would carry 180 people?
Normal cargo ships don't normal merchant ship would have a crew of 20, 40 people, not more.
Yeah.
So why are there suddenly 180, 200 Iranians on board?
But could there be stealth operations underway from the US and Israeli forces?
Of course it could be,
especially the USA front in this area?
Especially USA. I'm not entirely sure if Israeli submarines can reach this far, because they are Not nuclear propelled, but
But in any
US
case,
Navy
they
could,
would have had,
could
where
have
would
done
they have
this.
come from? They would have had to come through here, I
No,
suppose.
Iranian ship from here.
No, the Israeli ships.
Israeli ship would
Yeah,
actually
I mean
have
submarines.
to travel around the entire, at least in order to remain undetected,
Right.
around entire Africa. It's possible to do. You can send a supply ship, refuel it underway, and so on and so on. But it is extremely exhausting for the crew, also because it would mostly have to operate in very hot waters, which is particularly exhausting for submarine crew, because on a conventionally powered submarine, the air conditioning is simply not strong enough.
And we're getting more information.
Yes.
This is from Al Jazeera, where bodies have been recovered from the Iranian. It's a frigate. It's not some
It's a
cargo.
frigate.
It's a
So it was
frigate.
a warship.
It's a
Wow.
warship near the Sri Lankan
So
coast,
what
and
is
bodies
an
have been
Iranian
recovered.
warship doing
Okay.
near the waters of Sri Lanka? Is there a base that the Americans have?
I mean, that is really a good question. What was he doing over there? Because Iranian warships did make cruises up to Syria, for example, or Gulf of Aden. They're regularly here also because of piracy patrols
Yes.
and so on. So no question about this. But what was he doing near Sri Lanka? That is outside of my capability to explain.
That
Sorry.
is an interesting twist. And let's have a look at those other things that we're wanting to show you, these maps, these X-rays. What are we seeing here? This is US Navy's 5th Fleet, headquarters in Bahrain. So what exactly does all this represent?
Well, this is simply Iranian retaliation strikes. They have coordinates, GPS coordinates, they enter them into the UAVs and send them away. Where the UAV then hits 2 meters to the left or to the right, nobody cares. 20 meters to the right, nobody cares.
What kind of vessels would have been here at these at the headquarters in Bahrain of
Usually-
the 5th Fleet?
Usually there would be a command ship of the Fifth Fleet, which is a rebuilt amphibious assault vessel. So a huge ship with lots of space, lots of communication antennas on top, and all the stuff would be on board of it.
Right, that's very interesting. Now, this is the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. And
Yes.
we are seeing some destruction there. If you look behind you, you can even see a clearer image. There it is. What are we seeing here? What's happened? What is
I
this?
have to
that
zoom
has
out
been
myself
struck?
a little bit.
Have a look behind you, Tom. You can get a better sense on what you're seeing also because it's a clearer, less pixelated image. Yeah.
This is something I'm not sure what it is.
It's a lot of
It
scarring
looks
on the
like,
ground.
like containers or buildings that have been hit. So, but it is no
aircraft.
hardened aircraft shelter or something of that kind.
Right. So this is maybe a communications radar
be
or something. Could
communications
be
or-
anything.
or headquarters
right.
as well, yes.
And then there's the camp Arif Jan Kuwait, and you can see some of these round things that have been punctured. What could be these? Because
That would be
storage.
theoretically petroleum or something similar storage facility.
Yes.
Definitely some kind of storage facility because of the construction. But what exactly was there hit? That is also hard to gauge. Something was hit and something burned out.
And let's have a look at the airbase in Kuwait because that made a lot of news. This is the Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait. There's a radome, there's a satellite dish, there's damaged structures. What are we looking at
If you
here?
freeze this for a moment, please.
Yes, freeze this for a
Yes.
moment. Yeah, okay.
Point is this.
Yeah.
Radome like this is usually for used for satellite navigation, to
Mm-hmm.
cover antennas for satellite navigation. Here is one in free.
Yeah.
These are usually sun shelters. They are protecting equipment from the heat of the sun.
I see.
What happened at this base, as far as I'm informed, is that the local Patriot battery fired at the incoming Iranian missiles or UAVs, and one of the Patriots misfired or malfunctioned shortly after the start, and then hit a container with command and control facilities, but outside of the base, and killed 6 troops and injured several others.
And that's why we've
So
had
it might be that this was somewhere that some of this damage was caused to similar cases, but because there's quite a number. I've seen quite a number of videos showing Patriots failing upon launch.
Okay, let's have a look at the
Later.
next one. That's another very interesting visual. This is the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. What are we seeing here? There's another radome.
These are sun shelters,
Sun shelters,
usually
okay.
used to cover equipment. For example, tractors that are moving aircraft around, tractors that are moving trolleys with weaponry. They're all stored under such sun shelters.
So why wouldn't they have gone and attacked maybe some of the aircrafts?
Again, they would like to hit aircraft. That would be a prize for the Iranians. But they have nothing else but the coordinates, and whether the missile or the UAV then eventually really hits the sun shelter with aircraft, or this is probably a maintenance hangar or even the shelter for quick readiness alert aircraft, that's a different story. It happens next to never. We've seen, when was that? A year or so ago, when the Iranians hit the Al-Assad air base, US operated in Iraq, they have hit actually shelters with UAVs inside.
Well, we're going to look at more of those pictures, but time now for Take 3, viewers, and we're going to take a very quick break, I think, just about 3 minutes, and we're going to open up onto Take 3, where we'll have Tom with us, and of course we'll have Anand and myself, and we're going to talk a little bit about where this war is headed and how close are we to resolution. We'll take a very short break. We are being told they love us so much that they're not going to give up. Nice to see you, Anand. Nice to see you. Please come through. Yes, okay.
As we sit on Take 3, let's just take this forward.
Who likes to take a break?
No,
we're not that take a break kind of guys.
There's just so much happening. Now, one of the first questions that I have in mind is this whole set of fake videos that are coming out. Now, we saw this storm at Op Sindoor, and I just want to turn the spotlight on this because we have Nikita Beya of X, who has just come out and said that they've just found a guy in Pakistan that was managing 31 accounts posting AI war videos. All were hacked, and the usernames were changed on the 27th of February to, quote, Iran War Monitor or some derivative. Now, we are getting much faster at detecting this and also eliminating the incentive to do such stuff. But 27th of February till the 4th of March is a lot of time to spread misinformation. Why are social media platforms not cracking down on AI videos? Because these videos, when they do the rounds, they spread a narrative which is not the right one, or which is perhaps deviating from the actual what's happening.
Very simple question, very simple answer.
Yeah.
Social media is living from clicks.
Okay.
The more clicks you attract, the better.
Right.
So the social media actually loves such appearances, no matter where they are coming from.
Right.
They simply, thrive from this. They're attracting attention. And the more attention they're attracting, the more advertising they are attracting as well.
Right.
Because every time you want to see such a video, there is suddenly a screen popping up. Oh, look at this hair shampoo, or look at this car, or look at that, or whatever else. So advertising.
Right. But then there can be some mechanism where these software giants and these big tech, especially if you look at Facebook, Instagram, and also X, they can make sure that what is AI generated or not, or they can make it mandatory for users to very clearly put a disclaimer, this is AI generated and this is not.
Well, you have, for example, bodies like European Union, where the Parliament is attempting to enforce such laws, but it's extremely hard because the social media platforms, which are immensely rich nowadays, have it easy to lobby and to defend themselves with lawyers and so on and prevent such laws or such decisions to be taken.
But imagine what the damage that these fake videos can do closer home, Rahul, because there is a huge Shia population here. There are huge congregations that are happening. There is mourning that is happening, and any of these videos which are misdirected, which are wrong, anything can instigate them to do any action. It can work the other way. There is a significant population of Jews and Parsis also in our country. So both are following the war from their own vantage points. And at that time, when platforms like X, platforms like Facebook, platforms like Instagram, etc., do not put a curb on these kind of doctored videos, AI-generated videos, it causes a serious problem for us socially.
Yeah, I mean it does, but it's probably also very difficult to constantly monitor. There's so much coming out by content creators all the time. A lot of it just keeps coming through. It probably becomes very difficult and overwhelming, especially in times such as these. But fundamentally, I think you're absolutely right. When they're used as part of PSYOPs, it does become problematic, because we saw that during Operation Sindoor, and we had, of course, many fact checkers in-house here at CNN News 18 Yesterday, for example, there was a video that came in when we were doing the show, if you remember, at 9 p.m. And we moved to that video because it was so well produced and there was so much confusion about it that it came through, and there were these.
It
looked very genuine. There were these several sort of,
especially
hypersonic missiles crashing into Tel Aviv, and everyone thought that. But we were on air at that time with our reporter there, and I asked Sanjay. I said, Sanjay, are you hearing all of this? Because these blasts could be heard, if they did take place, could be heard for miles. He said, no, we're not hearing anything. I don't know what this video is, and I said it's got to be fake. And I'm glad we said that, because it was actually fake. It managed to slip through even our checks here, because it was posted by a huge number of very, very well-known official handles.
You know what? Tech platforms, here's my take, and we'll just quickly go on this. Tech platforms have got all the code written. Tech platforms know, they're writing code for everything. Now, if AI is also code written, so they can very easily write code for their software and their platform to filter what's AI generated, what's actually shot from a mobile phone, and it's real footage. I don't think it's rocket science or it's so difficult for them to figure that out.
Are we going to see some of this footage? Are we going to see the
we're
fakes
trying to call that out.
Real?
I just want to say, because there are quick, fast and moving developments. The other one that I wanted to cover ground, we're just breaking this on our channel also. Israel has eliminated IRGC's head of special operations, Rahman Makdam, and the man reportedly behind the assassination attempt on Donald Trump before the 2024 election. President Trump was updated by Israel in recent hours. So now today, what we have seen through the course of the day, Tom, is the focus shifting to decimating the IRGC and the busage. That's what the US-Israeli forces are claiming, and Rahman Makdam now, they believe, was the one behind Trump's attempted assassination back in February.
Yes.
2024,
Where he had very little to do with Basiji, actually, on the other hand. So you have to understand the following. Basiji is something like IGC youth.
Okay.
They are not really some kind of elite. IGC is not no kind of elite or something. But Makdam was elite of the IGC. So this is quite a nice success when if they have really hit him. Basiji is a big movement where local youth, especially in rural areas of Iran, is recruited into these groups, and they have some kind of paramilitary training and so on and so on. But they are particularly important when there are protests. Then they are sent to the cities, almost like motorbike gangs, and there are motorbike gangs between them, and then they are trying to suppress the protesting and push them away, and so on and so on. And then there are additional units which are trained for riot suppression, or for suppression of protesters, and then there are IRGC units which are shooting at protesters, or they bring in Kataib Hezbollah from Iraq and let them open fire as they like, with machine guns. So it is not a very simple organization to explain.
Right, but I know these organizations can have localized commands, but
they
that to a certain extent.
They
all have localized commands.
There's always a local battalion, a local brigade, depending on the size of the population.
Yes, but after a certain point in time, if I have taken out the top 20, 25 people who are supposed to fill in for the other and cover, there will be a time when they will be like a headless hydra. There will be a time when they will not know what their command functions are.
But local command remains in place. So you kill 25, 35, 45, 50, 60 top people, but unless you have shot away the local command, there's no effect. Let me give you a perfect comparison.
Right.
2003, Americans are invading Iraq, and all of a sudden the Iraqi regime has turned off all of its Turiya telephones. So there was not satellite telephones.
Right.
And there was nothing for the Americans and for the British intelligence to intercept anymore. So that was the first problem. The second problem was now, how do they communicate?
Right.
It was silly, because the Iraqis did something very simple. They began using motorcycle-mounted couriers in exchanging written messages. And they were doing this via the local offices of the Ba'ath Party. So it took the Americans 1 week, and the British, or even longer than 1 week, to figure out how the Iraqis doing this. And only once they started targeting Baath Party headquarters in different villages and towns and so on, have they broken down the serious resistance of the Baath regime.
So there's a redundancy, you're almost saying. There's a redundancy.
So now imagine how this
redundancy.
now compare the population of Iran, compare the size of Iran, and so you know what to expect in this case.
It's going to be very, very difficult. The other thing is that they seem to have figured out this analog by the Houthis. The Houthis seem to have taught back, it's like reverse engineering to the IRGC and the Basij and these guys, how to work in an analog mode when your digital communications could fail.
The Houthis, my gentlemen, are a nightmare for people like me to study because they are decentralized to the degree where you could name them individual armed forces of Yemen. Because they have a commander here, commander there. They have absolute freedom of control, command and control, decision, whatever they want.
Right.
Very often while the war was going on in 2015, 16, 17, so the Arab alliance attempted to attack them. What they would do would to mine the road, surrounded, especially in some pass. So they would put two youngsters on top of nearby hills. These were chewing cut, and whoever attempted to demine the road, they were shooting at him. So, and it often took an entire brigade to punch through and to get through this pass in order to suppress these two guys who are hiding up there on the hills or something, and this took weeks and months. And eventually, the Arab alliance, the Saudi and back then it was Saudi and Emirati led, gave up. They gave up advancing on Sana'a because it was insane. You cannot, you remove one roadblock and a few mines, and 1 kilometers further is
but
the same
so
problem
far
again.
the Houthis haven't actively got into this.
That's what's surprising me, because they have announced already that was it the first inning or the second inning they are going to do something, but then nothing happened.
Okay. Now the other point. Now in this game that you see, and I'm going to ask you this, Rahul, where do you see the entire equation changing? Because we are also looking at the energy rates. We are looking at the cost that it's coming to for all the countries. Diesel has gone up, petrol has gone up, LNG has gone up, energy rates have gone up. In US itself has gone up by about 20 cents. And closer home, we are going to feel the pinch of it. So does it all now, from your point of view, boil down to who controls the Strait of Hormuz?
That's a very good point, but I think that problem will be taken care of. I think this war will still linger on though. And the reason I'm saying it is because since he's talked about decentralization, imagine how difficult it is. If you're so decentralized, you can always control various pockets of the population.
Right.
The whole idea behind this war, now that we're being told, is to carry out a massive decapitation strike, soften up the regime weakens, they run out of weapons, and then the people say, okay, now's our time to strike. This is something that also happened during the first Iraq war, if you remember, or later on in Libya. Now, if that is the way you want to go about it, if this is so decentralized, it becomes problematic because these local potentates can keep control and still carry out atrocities, kill people, and so on and so forth, and keep them in line. So you might still have remnants of the IRGC in place. The other thing that they are thinking of doing is to using minority populations. And those minorities, they are hoping, like the Kurdis, etc., which is the largest minority in Iran, to come in there and fight a sort of guerrilla war. Now, all of that is going to take time. It's going to open up new frontiers, and it becomes very difficult then to control the theater. So I really feel that unless someone says, okay, let's, for the sake of appearances, have conversations, and that well could be it. You might have the Iranians suddenly saying that, look, we don't mind having a conversation, let's start the dialogue. Trump and everybody says, okay, this is our opportunity, we've got a bit of an off-ramp, let's get into the dialogue room, but still, what are you going to talk about?
There's not going to be any conversation now. I think both sides have gone far beyond that. I'm just going to
have boots on the ground.
Let me just ask you. Let me ask you this. What if happens that the Kurds come in from the west? You have the Baloch coming in from the east. There is some influx which is happening from the north into Iran. And those who were on the streets in January, February, They
As far as still
now,
alive.
they along all you know, like many reports say, they were pushed by the Mossad, etc. But after the top leadership is softened, after the top leadership is gone, there is no street patrol because it's all localized command. Can each of these localized people, those people who are there, now challenge the local commands and then take them over there?
This is an
Now
excellent question,
suddenly the street violence is spread all across Iran, across the streets, and it's down on the streets, and there is no Basij militia.
This is
There
now
is no
excellent
IRGC, there is no
question.
air support.
There's
no intelligence gathering either.
because this Iranian opposition theoretically should be well organized, but it is not. It is full of enthusiasm, no dispute about this. It is full of this cry for freedom, absolutely no dispute about this. I wish them all the best, but they are so disorganized and they are so much refusing to listen to advice. They do not even understand that what has happened to them in January was the same that has happened to the Syrians in 2011.
Okay.
And that by the same people, because it was also the IRGC that was sent to Syria to murder the Syrians. So what to expect for them? They are advice resistant, they know better, but don't know anything at all. This is why I'm so skeptical about this. This is the essence
in this
of
case, in January, there were no armed personnel along with the protesters. Now, if
There were.
no.
There are enough videos showing them shooting at IRGC.
IRGC.
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
That's
A
what I'm
few
saying.
dozens, let's
See,
say.
but the IRGC and the Basij outnumbered these armed protesters. Now, if in this current scenario, after
not going
another
to
3-4 days of pounding and decentralization, no communication there, it's localized command, 50, 100, 2,000, 150 or 500 people of the IRGC commanders there, and when it is localized, sprinkled all over, suddenly if there is an organized street protest and there is armed militia who are on ground, who have already been infiltrating from the center, from the east,
are-
from the
Can I just
west.
say
Then
something?
we are actually talking about armed insurgency and
No,
such as about a civil war.
Exactly, but hang on. Let's also look at the geography of Iran.
Yeah.
It's not easy. If I'm not mistaken, if this is sort of Iran, a bit like this, it comes down. There are mountains here. There are mountains here. Tel Aviv is in the middle of two ranges,
Tehran,
really.
yes.
Yeah, Tehran.
Yeah, Tehran. Sorry. Tehran is in the middle of two ranges. You have to take over Tehran at some point. You can't even have, let's say, a waterborne Dunkirk-style invasion because you have mountains right there.
Yeah.
So I really don't know.
No, that's the
how
reason
this
why they're
is-
pounding Tehran.
I-
That's the
you know,
reason why they're
I mean,
pounding Kasaj, because they want to
I
negate.
refuse to believe. Look, I don't
Yeah.
know what the Ayatollah was doing in his bunker, but I think everyone is now smart enough to know that they won't be in those bunkers anymore. They'll probably be hiding everywhere else. And if you're already
See-
talking about a successor, that means these guys are not giving up.
Yeah.
Because by now you would have had some cracks even within the regime. Look what happened in Venezuela, for example, when the top man went. The number two
No,
said,
but
"Okay,
here's the
let me-
first
let
crack.
me-
Here's
let
the
me
first
talk
crack.
Let me talk to Trump."
But
that
Rahul,
didn't happen.
ask Tom. Let's ask
Yeah.
Tom. Here's the first crack. It's the first time that the entire experts council has actually chosen somebody from within the Khamenei family when there is not the case, and it's clear pressure from the IRGC hawks. And Mujtaba Hussaini, you yourself called him a psychopath earlier in the day. Who's Mujtaba Khamenei? And Mujtaba Khamenei coming along with the hawks in the IRGC, will they not actually create a rift within the IRGC? Will there not be the moderates in the IRGC who will say, no, this is not something which we want
I
to
just
break
wanna
away?
say
Why
one
not?
thing.
Because they are controlling the economy and they are losing so much if they give up.
That's
This
right.
is
So-
like if you
and
say,
look, you're
now I'm
saying,
going to
just right now is what is being said. You're saying that the IRGC wants.
Yeah.
That means the IRGC is still powerful to be obeyed.
No, the IRGC has always
So
controlled the
IR
spiritual
that's
group.
what I'm saying. So the IRGC is saying, I
yes
want
and
X
no.
person. I want X
Yeah.
person. But the spiritual group does actually, there has never been interference
Why do you
from
think?
the IRGC.
Why do you think the Israelis
No,
are
no, one
going
second,
after
one second.
Makdam? Why do you think the Israelis are
Just one
going
second,
after
give me-
Makdam?
give
Yeah,
me one
okay,
second.
okay.
IRGC has not really played a role in the appointment of the Ayatollah. That is a separate political process.
Yes.
We've never
A
had that
religious
overlap.
process.
That's right.
It
it's a
is supposed to be a religious
it is
process,
religious. You can
but it
work.
is-
It's a bit like Thailand, where you have the military which works with the palace, okay? And there is an unsaid sort of collaboration, a coalition.
Yes.
But I don't think they determine who will be the successor.
But-
the point is here, there is a dictation coming.
Yes.
Which means that the IRGC is formally right now in charge of
It is.
Iran. and it is not going anywhere.
Tom.
That's what I feel.
Tom, if the IRGC is trying to take control like the Pak military, will there be resistance to this or not?
As far as I can say, IRGC is in control of Iran since the early 1990s.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, since the time Khamenei is in power, supreme leader. So that would time this to 1988, 89. That is not the problem. But on the other hand, you have this religious aspect of the entire situation. IRGC would have no legitimacy without the Shia clergy. So they had to always find a way to cooperate with the clergy, or if not, they would sideline them, exile them, house arrest them, or something else with them. They would usually not kill them, at least.
Yeah.
But and that is now the problem. On one side, you have this religious aspect, and that is why they are also, we are talking about Khamenei as a terrorist here, terrorist there, terrorist this, terrorist that, killed so many, killed this here. But he was also a spiritual leader. He was issuing spiritual advice to the followers of his religion.
Right.
So he is very important for that. If the Israelis kill not only him, but also a few others, they are causing a sort of a religious war. We shouldn't forget that.
If the sentiment is religious, Tom, then if a Mujtaba Khamenei is being picked without following the proper due procedure, violating what actually is supposed to be done, and he's been pushed there and he's made there, seated there by the IRGC, will he find the respect and command the respect of all the followers? Or will there be those who will say, hey, what is this going on? Our next supreme leader has to be elected by the method that's described. And he's not supposed to be the one coming because he's a family member of the previous supreme leader.
Yes, then you create this situation like there is already with the Sunnis, already since the end of the Caliphate in 1922-24.
Yeah.
And which means that any Tom, Dick and Harry can declare himself for the new spiritual leader. And then you have a chaos, and then you have violence.
Let's ask ourselves a fundamental question.
Right.
Why is it that somebody, look, the mullahs have been very, very clear about one thing. We're not going to have dynastic succession, right?
Correct.
So why are they picking a dynast, the son of?
Yeah.
Why?
He's the second son,
because they want to play the emotional card, the sympathy card, right? Also remember, the mullahs cannot rule without an army. So they need the army.
In this
context, the IRGC becomes very important because they're under external attack.
In this case, the mullahs cannot rule without the army, or has the army now turned around and said, hey, we cannot remain in control without you. So that's why you become the one.
It's mutual. The mullahs understand that they need IRGC. IRGC understands that it needs the mullahs.
They don't have an option. This is about survival now. I don't think this is really about anything else.
Okay, now we got limited time. Let me ask you, how can the US and the Gulf nations regain the control of the Strait of Hormuz? How is that possible? What will they have to do?
You need a massive military deployment simply over there. They need to establish the capability to control the Iranian side of the coast and to hit whatever even thinks about shooting at the Hormuz Strait. Is perfectly possible, but takes time to bring the forces to the place. It takes 2-3 weeks to gather necessary ships and then organize supplies and so on. So otherwise you have the situation. This is actually showing how little was this thought out.
No, now they have hit an Iranian tanker. They've now hit an Iranian tanker. A submarine has hit an Iranian tanker, and the Sri Lankan Navy has picked up the
warship.
Iranian warship.
It's a frigate.
But
that is very different because it's very far away, and that's a really big story. It's a mystery as to what this frigate was doing.
So far down, so far away. So far away.
But actually, let me just come back to that point about the Strait of Hormuz. What is the one big bargaining chip that this regime in Tehran has? The chokehold over the Strait of Hormuz. Without that, what do they bring to the table? So how do they make sure that Trump and Israel and the allies are paying a cost? Without being able to control that Strait of Hormuz, they actually lose leverage. And that's the point I'm trying to make. They will do everything in their power to try and continue to control the Strait of Hormuz, where he comes in when he says, then you need a lot of deployment. Now imagine, Trump has only got supposedly the support of 50% of the people going into this war back home. One ship sinks. One military US ship sinks. It's going to look terrible. And this entire public
Just get
opinion
damaged.
will get
Damaged.
absolutely.
But that's the
political
reason why
class will go the other way.
That's the
That's
the reason why. But if you look at it, with each passing day, the number of missiles fired by the Iranians has come down, and especially in this region. And the kind of pounding they are getting, they are also having their own ammunition dumping depleted. Now, why is it that they have not focused on pounding the Iranian side and also those small islands there?
They
have pounded.
It's not the question. If we just don't get to see this, so
Well,
I know this from personal
We can
contact.
show it on that map, which you have pulled out very nicely for us. I'm just going to continue talking.
Right,
I'll
because
just-
we've run out of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this map out and we're going to also show you how the Strait of Hormuz is now going to be defended or secured away from the Iranians, even as Trump promises an insurance and says, all right, we'll take care of your security, we'll allow trade to happen. How they're going to do that?
If we can get a handheld camera here very quickly, I just want to show you this because it's very interesting and it's just going to open up. This is a dashboard. It's actually prepared by an institute that is at some
the
level.
INSS
That's
in
right.
Israel, a think tank
Exactly.
in
It's
Israel.
an Israeli think tank, but which has a connect with the military there. But I just want to see this. It's an interactive map, and it's very interesting because as we open it here, can we cut to that, please?
Yeah.
That's right. Now you see it's the Lion's Roar, Epic Fury, and it's going to open. It's taking a little bit of time. There it comes up. There it comes up on my screen. And if you begin to look at this map, we're hoping to get a signal here. Oh, hell. There we go. There we go. There we go. Yay. There's a signal. There we are.
And
That's
away from
it.
Iran.
Now you see this? This is the coastline of Iran.
Yeah, and
you
that's
can
the
see
Strait
this.
of Hormuz.
You see that
you
there
can
are
see the Strait
strikes.
of Hormuz. There you go. All of these areas are being hit.
There's some active strikes going on.
Yeah, that's the.
That
that's
is
the-
over the last 4 days, but you can expect, you can assume with high degree of
There.
dependency, that
Yeah,
has been
assurance,
dependent conclusion
Confidence.
that they are continuously striking this area.
Right. So the red zones are the ones that are hot. There's still heat signatures, heat maps that are coming in. It's coming in from the Israelis. It's a think tank.
Airstrikes, yes.
But we'll tell you more and we'll show it to you on the bigger screen when we come back after a short break. On that note, we're going to call it a pause here on Take 3, but our rolling coverage on the other side. Stay with us.
Increasing quantity of Iranian missiles and so on could better be addressed to our Israeli friend. He may be able to advise us as to why it is happening, since he is a reservist for the last 15 years. As far as I am concerned, I think Iranian moves, as also perhaps Israeli moves, have been very calculated. It is not as if Iran, at least, is not going in for carpet bombing or mindless destructions. Its targets are selected very carefully.
Right.
Maybe it is finished with the first attacks it had on the US assets in the Gulf region. So now its concentration is on Israel and perhaps some of the ships that Americans may have in and around the area of Israel.
Okay.
So that is why there could be a reduction.
Jay, now let's just bring in point number 2 also, because we've overlapped a little bit, where he said that as this conflict rages, US and Israel will strike key Iranian bases. But what will their targets be today? What will they focus on today? So Tom, let's start with you, because clearly the Israelis are moving in. They struck at Karaj and Tehran last evening. Karaj, you said, was a strong communications center. All of
Not only
the
communication center, major military base.
Military
You have several military, missile garrisons, if you like, around the city, plus a major radar station on top of the hill above Karaj. So it is obvious that they are trying to de facto, establish themselves a corridor towards Tehran in order to have it easier to reach the city with their airstrikes. That's why they have to neutralize as much as possible of Iranian air defenses and other military assets in the Karaj area.
Increasing quantity of Iranian missiles and so on could better be addressed to our Israeli friend. He may be able to advise us as to why it is happening, since he is a reservist for the last 15 years. As far as I'm concerned, I think Iranian moves, as also perhaps Israeli moves, have been very calculated. It is not as if Iran, at least, is not going in for carpet bombing or mindless destructions. Its targets are selected very carefully.
Right.
Maybe it is finished with the first attacks it had on the US assets in the Gulf region. So now its concentration is on Israel and perhaps some of the ships that Americans may have in and around the area of Israel.
Okay.
So that is why there could be a reduction.
Jay, let's just bring in point number 2 also, because we've overlapped a little bit, where he said that as this conflict rages, US and Israel will strike key Iranian bases. But what will their targets be today? What will they focus on today? So Tom, let's start with you, because clearly the Israelis are moving in. They struck at Karaj and Tehran last evening. Karaj, you said, was a strong communications center. All of
Not only
the
communication center, major military base.
Military
You have several military, missile garrisons, if you like, around the city, plus a major radar station on top of the hill above Karaj. So it is obvious that they are trying to de facto, establish themselves a corridor towards Tehran in order to have it easier to reach the city with their airstrikes. That's why they have to neutralize as much as possible of Iranian air defenses and other military assets in the Karaj area.
Increasing quantity of Iranian missiles and so on could better be addressed to our Israeli friend. He may be able to advise us as to why it is happening, since he is a reservist for the last 15 years. As far as I'm concerned, I think Iranian moves, as also perhaps Israeli moves, have been very calculated. It is not as if Iran, at least, is not going in for carpet bombing or mindless destructions. Its targets are selected very carefully.
Right.
Maybe it is finished with the first attacks it had on the US assets in the Gulf region. So now its concentration is on Israel and perhaps some of the ships that Americans may have in and around the area of Israel.
Okay.
So that is why there could be a reduction.
Jay, let's just bring in point number 2 also, because we've overlapped a little bit, where he said that as this conflict rages, US and Israel will strike key Iranian bases. But what will their targets be today? What will they focus on today? So Tom, let's start with you, because clearly the Israelis are moving in. They struck at Karaj and Tehran last evening. Karaj, you said, was a strong communications center. All of
Not
the
only communication center, major military base.
Military
You have several military, missile garrisons, if you like, around the city, plus a major radar station on top of the hill above Karaj. So it is obvious that they are trying to de facto, establish themselves a corridor towards Tehran in order to have it easier to reach the city with their airstrikes. That's why they have to neutralize as much as possible of Iranian air defenses and other military assets in the Karaj area.
Increasing quantity of Iranian missiles and so on could better be addressed to our Israeli friend. He may be able to advise us as to why it is happening, since he is a reservist for the last 15 years. As far as I'm concerned, I think Iranian moves, as also perhaps Israeli moves, have been very calculated. It is not as if Iran, at least, is not going in for carpet bombing or mindless destructions. Its targets are selected very carefully.
Right.
Maybe it is finished with the first attacks it had on the US assets in the Gulf region. So now its concentration is on Israel and perhaps some of the ships that Americans may have in and around the area of Israel.
Okay.
So that is why there could be a reduction.
Jay, now let's just bring in point number 2 also, because we've overlapped a little bit, where he said that as this conflict rages, US and Israel will strike key Iranian bases. But what will their targets be today? What will they focus on today? So Tom, let's start with you, because clearly the Israelis are moving in. They struck at Karaj and Tehran last evening. Karaj, you said, was a strong communications center. All of
Not only
the
communication center, major military base.
Military
You have several military, missile garrisons, if you like, around the city, plus a major radar station on top of the hill above Karaj. So it is obvious that they are trying to de facto, establish themselves a corridor towards Tehran in order to have it easier to reach the city with their airstrikes. That's why they have to neutralize as much as possible of Iranian air defenses and other military assets in the Karaj area.
Increasing quantity of Iranian missiles and so on could better be addressed to our Israeli friend. He may be able to advise us as to why it is happening, since he is a reservist for the last 15 years. As far as I am concerned, I think Iranian moves, as also perhaps Israeli moves, have been very calculated. It is not as if Iran, at least, is not going in for carpet bombing or mindless destructions. Its targets are selected very carefully.
Right.
Maybe it is finished with the first attacks it had on the US assets in the Gulf region. So now its concentration is on Israel and perhaps some of the ships that America.
Welcome back. You're watching CNN News 18 and I'm Poonam Burde. Our coverage on the war in the Middle East continues. We do have updates coming in minute by minute, ground presence like no other channel to give you a sense of what exactly is transpiring in Tehran, in Israel and the rest of the Arab world that seems to be facing the brunt of what's transpiring. It's day 5 of the war and there is no let-up. But before we get to the details, here are the headlines. Multiple strikes jolt Tehran as US and Israeli forces cripple different parts of it. Several parts of the city targeted by US and Israeli forces. Iran strikes US military communications, radar and satellite infrastructure across the Middle East. Satellite imagery shows key systems at bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and UAE damaged. Trump administration will host top US defense contractors at the White House on March 6 to press for faster weapons production as the Pentagon moves to rebuild stockpiles drained by the recent strikes. Iran's clerical assembly of experts has reportedly chosen Mojtaba Khamenei as the successor of Ali Khamenei. He is going to be the next leader. Mass mourning reportedly lay after the death of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei. Intelligence agencies raised serious red flags over foreign radical elements operating in India. Amid escalating geopolitical tensions, Indian markets plunge as Sensex drops over 1,700 points. Nifty falls 500 points, while the rupee sinks to a new low of 92 versus the dollar. And before we get you what's happening in the Middle East, here's some political quake that seems to be happening in India here. In fact, in Bihar's political circles, there is speculation that's growing that Chief Minister Nitish Kumar is likely to step down from the helm of affairs. He's expected to get a ticket to the Rajya Sabha next. That's what we're learning now. Remember, he's the longest serving Chief Minister of Bihar. He's been a 10-time Chief Minister. Is that era going to end? JDU chief is set to file his nomination papers, is what we're given to understand. That is expected to happen as early as tomorrow. There are a flurry of questions that are triggering of who is going to succeed him as the chief minister. What role is it that Nitish Kumar will play here in the national politics? How is this going to fare for the BJP and the JDU combined? That's something that we're trying to get a sense of, getting you more details. But Thursday, tomorrow, is as early as when those nomination papers could be filed by Nitish Kumar. Payal and Arunima, my colleagues, now join us, getting us more details. Payal, what more have you gathered? What has led to this decision that Nitish Kumar will eventually be leaving Bihar to make his way into the Rajya Sabha?
Well, of course, Nitish Kumar, if he comes to the Rajya Sabha, the last day for the nomination will be tomorrow. So, interestingly, Nitish Kumar will be filing his nomination alongside BJP's president, Nitin Nabin, who has also been nominated to the Rajya Sabha. It's a very interesting development that is coming to the fore, given the fact that rumblings have been there within the JDU in terms of how Nitish Kumar's health has really deteriorated. Ever since he was made the chief minister, he was already bad, but it has gone for worse, is what JDU insiders have been able to tell us as well. So therefore, there is a point on time when Nitish Kumar will have to take a call on who's going to succeed him. He's been somebody, Puram, who has always been against dynastic politics. So it's very, very critical for one to understand whether he's going to anoint his son to take over from where he's really left. As the party president, Sanjay Jha is currently the working president of the party. And Sanjay Jha, we are given to understand, was told by Nitish Kumar to take the appropriate call for the party as well. So interesting, 24 hours remaining for the Rajya Sabha nominations to really close as well. With Nitish Kumar steps on as a chief minister, not does he step down from a position that he's held for 10 times, and the longest serving chief minister of Bihar. He's been the EBC leader. He's been somebody who's not compromised with the principles, come what may as well. So especially as far as the dynastic politics is concerned, who takes over from him is the big question. Natural choice, given the fact that Deputy CM is Samrat Chaudhary. Will he make way for the CM? That remains to be seen. Will Nitish Kumar's son be given the position of the deputy chief minister? That is all going to be waiting. That's something that we'll have to wait and watch for some time to see how this really pans out. But yesterday, a big meeting of the BJP leadership did take place here in the national capital, where multiple people did meet and talk about the situation as well. So that is something, unless we know it officially, we'll have to just wait and see what call Nitish Kumar and his party really take.
Right, Payal, do stay on with us. The ball is going to be in the JDU's court, or is it really going to be, Arunima? Is that something that the BJP will now call the shots on as to who takes the mantle from Nitish Kumar?
See, when the Bihar election campaigning was happening, if you recall, Bharatiya Janata Party took some time before it came out cleanly and said that nobody but Nitish Kumar will be their CM face. Home Minister Amit Shah had to make that clarification because the opposition was utilizing their previous statements where the BJP leadership was only willing to state that, the NDA is fighting elections under Nitish Kumar. That was being seized by opposition to say that Nitish will be removed once NDA wins this Bihar assembly, and that had a sense of discomfort amongst Nitish supporters. I think Bharatiya Janata Party and JDU both acknowledge and accept that the massive mandate that NDA has seen in Bihar was in the name of Nitish Kumar. There was absolutely no anti-incumbency in his name. So 3 months after that historic mandate, will it be politically prudent for Nitish Kumar to be replaced? That's challenge number one for NDA. But then those who are pushing for BJP to take over in the chief minister's post are also pointing out to the numbers. 89 seats for BJP, 85 for the JDU, when both sides contested equal number of seats. So if BJP has more seats, why should they not have the chief ministerial candidate? Is those who are pushing for a change are arguing. But I was speaking to some JDU leaders. It seems that the JDU is sharply divided. One section feels that in the interest of governance of Bihar, Nitish Kumar should allow a BJP candidate to take over. But there's another section which is vehemently opposed, pointing out exactly what I told you in the first point, that this mandate is for Nitish Kumar and therefore him stepping down does not make sense. Let him decide if his son Nishant should take over. Like Payal pointed out, not just Nitish Kumar, his old-time colleagues also are opposed to dynastic politics. They say if Nishant replaces Nitish at helm of affairs in JDU, how do you then criticize the Lalu Prasad Yadav, who has been criticized for exactly allowing Tejasvi and the other siblings to take over the RJD's mantle? So it's not going to be an easy call, but increasingly speculations are rife that in the next half hour or so, around 6 p.m. today, perhaps we will see that political earthquake in Bihar.
Right. Right, Payal and Arunima, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. We are shifting focus now to updates coming in as far as the war in the Middle East is concerned. There is more information that's now trickling in, and this is about a particular attack that seems to have come to the fore. Anand Narasimhan will be joining us, getting us more details of what exactly is transpiring there. But it looks like Iran has now targeted a NATO member, Turkey. Turkey shot down the Iranian missile as well. There's more information that's trickling in via our investigations editor, Manoj Gupta, as well. Anand, what more can you share with us?
Well, there was an international fleet review that happened, that is the India Milan 2026. It was a multinational naval exercise, an international fleet review in Vizag in February. Now, after this Iranian frigate that took part in it was way out of Indian waters. It was in international waters, and it was returning to home via the standard westward routing south of Sri Lanka. And that's where this attack has happened. No side has actually claimed responsibility for this attack. So nobody knows who's sunk this, but they know it's a submarine attack. Nearly 100 people are feared dead, but the Sri Lankan Navy jumping in the moment there was an SOS call. We're given to understand that Bharat also sent across planes to try and take a recce of what has actually transpired and where it's transpired. But it was the Sri Lankan Navy that was one of the first responders, and they have been able to rescue about 32 people. Maybe from their accounts we would be able to know what exactly happened, but we are given to understand that this is a single underwater explosion causing a catastrophic hull breach, rapid flooding and sinking within minutes. The distress call came from this ship, this frigate, this warship, Iranian warship, between 5:08 and 5:30 a.m. this morning. So in a matter of 20-25 minutes, the damage inflicted on this frigate has been so heavy that the ship sank. But we are given to understand that this happened about 40 nautical miles south of Galle. So that's deep in the Indian Ocean.
But given that it's now transpiring in the Indian Ocean as well, it's much closer home for India. How is India looking at all of this?
Well, the war one can look at it as spreading very, very fast, very soon. But the other thing is that we can look at the objective of the US-Israeli epic fury. They want to reduce and totally defang the Iranian Navy. And that's exactly what they seem to be focused on. The Iranian Navy has about 13 to 26 differently abled, capabilities of warships, which also include mini submarines, these frigates. There were a few corvettes that had been sunk. So far, America claims about 13 to 15 such ships have been negated. So that means they've really weakened the Iranian Navy. And there's a reason why they are doing this. Because the moment the Iranian Navy is weaker, they cannot try and take control over the Strait of Hormuz. So they need the Navy in place for them to effect any kind of control or patrolling to try and block the Strait of Hormuz. And over the next 48 hours, we'll also see all kinds of Iranian defense that's been put for SAMs or surface-to-air missiles or even ground bases, which they have done in and around the Strait of Hormuz, being decimated so that the straits are open and the commercial viability or this entire oil and energy crisis that's going to be created, and there's a certain level of alarm across the world, that is assuaged.
Well, we'll have to look at how it spills over, for how long it lasts as well. But for the moment, Anand, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. And like we've been talking about, it's day 5 of the war in the Middle East. For how long is there going to be this war that continues? For how long can Iran, the United States and Israel, the three stakeholders, really keep the pressure on each other? Because it's not just the three of them that are bearing the brunt anymore. There are several other stakeholders that are caught in the midst of this entire crisis, including Gulf nations who cannot afford to be caught in the midst of this war, a war that's not theirs to begin with. But now we have more information that's now trickling in. There's more breaking news that's coming in as well. But before we get to those inputs, here's a look at what has transpired so far. There's proof on camera. There are videos that are being released from all sides, and now there is satellite imagery to show the extent of damage that has taken place. These are pictures, these are satellite imageries that are coming in from both Israel and from Tehran. But first, let's take you through what has transpired in Tehran and what really the damage has been. This that you see on your screens is a presidential complex in Tehran. This is what it looked like before. This is that dome which was the presidential palace. And here is the impact that you now see. This is the satellite imagery that you now see on CNN News 18, which goes on to show the kind of impact that has been created by that strike. The judiciary complex bears a similar look in Tehran as well. There is this image that came in from before the strike, and then you see that particular image. There are several parts from this image where you see all of those buildings intact, and then you look at this particular picture where there are several gaping holes, so to say. This is where there was damage that was inflicted upon The judiciary complex, remember several power circles, power centers, both military, both diplomatic in Tehran, had been struck by the United States and Israel. And the satellite imagery now goes on to show the extent of damage that was caused to several of these installations. Let's get you some more breaking information that's now trickling in. What we're learning is that an Iranian ballistic missile is heading towards Turkish airspace, and that was shot down by NATO. We're given to understand that the Turkish Foreign Ministry, the Defense Ministry in fact, has also come out and given more details of what is transpiring. Akanksha, my colleague, is joining us, getting us more details, and we'll just walk across to her to get us those details of what is transpiring as far as Turkey is concerned. Akanksha, there are details trickling in now of a particular missile attack that was thwarted, really?
Absolutely. And in fact, the latest we are getting to know is that this was in the Dortiol district of Hatay province, belonging to the air defense munition used in the interception. No casualties or injuries have been detected so far. And in fact, Turkey has also gone on to say that they are cautioning and warning everyone to refrain from actions that could further spread the conflict in the region. In this regard, we will continue consultations with NATO and other allies. Now, this is the last key aspect that I want to emphasize on, because Poonam, this is exactly the possibility we all have been discussing, that if you look at the way Western forces are being dragged into this, especially the UK stam has been very reluctant. We've seen how the French President Emmanuel Macron has also issued a warning saying that even though their air defense systems are ready, they would urge for dialogue and diplomacy, a stance which has also been overall endorsed by Germany. Turkey has now referred to how NATO will be beginning with consultations. Let's hope better sense prevails and that these NATO forces prevail over the United States and urge them to, in fact, de-escalate this overall conflict, because we've been going through this map since morning. And if you look at the adjoining areas, Turkey could very well bear the impact of a spillover effect.
Absolutely. A lot of other countries in that region have already faced the brunt. Whether Turkey is next, they are, of course, wary of what comes next. They would not want this war to drag on for any longer than it already has, even though the US President, Mr. Donald Trump, seems to say that he is in it for the long haul and this war can continue for as long as it takes, for as long as they reach their end game in Iran. What comes next in the region? What comes next for these stakeholders? We'll decode all of that here on CNN News 18. But for now, it's time for a quick pause.
Increasing quantity of Iranian missiles and so on could better be addressed to our Israeli friend. He may be able to advise us as to why it is happening, since he is a reservist for the last 15 years. As far as I am concerned, I think Iranian moves, as also perhaps Israeli moves, have been very calculated. It is not as if Iran, at least, is not going in for carpet bombing or mindless destructions. Its targets are selected very carefully.
Right.
Maybe it is finished with the first attacks it had on the US assets in the Gulf region. So now its concentration is on Israel and perhaps some of the ships that Americans may have in and around the area of Israel.
Okay.
So that is why there could be a reduction.
Jay, now let's just bring in point number 2 also, because we've overlapped a little bit, where he said that as this conflict rages, US and Israel will strike key Iranian bases. But what will their targets be today? What will they focus on today? So Tom, let's start with you, because clearly the Israelis are moving in. They struck at Karaj and Tehran last evening. Karaj, you said, was a strong communications center. All of
not only communication center, major military base. Several military, missile garrisons, if you like, around the city, plus a major radar station on top of the hill above Karaj. So it is obvious that they are trying to de facto, establish themselves a corridor towards Tehran in order to have it easier to reach the city with their airstrikes. That's why they have to neutralize as much as possible of Iranian air defenses and other military assets in the Karaj area.
Increasing quantity of Iranian missiles and so on could better be addressed to our Israeli friend. He may be able to advise us as to why it is happening, since he is a reservist for the last 15 years. As far as I am concerned, I think Iranian moves, as also perhaps Israeli moves, have been very calculated. It is not as if Iran, at least, is not going in for carpet bombing or mindless destructions. Its targets are selected very carefully.
Right.
Maybe it is finished with the first attacks it had on the US assets in the Gulf region. So now its concentration is on Israel and perhaps some of the ships that Americans may have in and around the area of Israel.
Okay.
So that is why there could be a reduction.
Jay, now let's just bring in point number 2 also, because we've overlapped a little bit, where he said that as this conflict rages, US and Israel will strike key Iranian bases. But what will their targets be today? What will they focus on today? So Tom, let's start with you, because clearly the Israelis are moving in. They struck at Karaj and Tehran last evening. Karaj, you said, was a strong communications center. All of
Not only
the
communication center, major military base.
Military
you have several military, missile garrisons, if you like, around the city, plus a major radar station at top of the hill above Karaj. So it is obvious that they are trying to de facto, establish themselves a corridor towards Tehran in order to have it easier to reach the city with their airstrikes. That's why they have to neutralize as much as possible of Iranian air defenses and other military assets in the Karaj area.
Increasing quantity of Iranian missiles and so on could better be addressed to our Israeli friend. He may be able to advise us as to why it is happening, since he is a reservist for the last 15 years. As far as I am concerned, I think Iranian moves, as also perhaps Israeli moves, have been very calculated. It is not as if Iran, at least, is not going in for carpet bombing or mindless destructions. Its targets are selected very carefully.
Right.
Maybe it is finished with the first attacks it had on the US assets in the Gulf region. So now its concentration is on Israel and perhaps some of the ships that Americans may have in and around the area of Israel.
Okay.
So that is why there could be a reduction.
Jay, now let's just bring in point number 2 also, because we've overlapped a little bit, where he said that as this conflict rages, US and Israel will strike key Iranian bases. But what will their targets be today? What will they focus on today? So Tom, let's start with you, because clearly the Israelis are moving in. They struck at Karaj and Tehran last evening. Karaj, you said, was a strong communications center. All of
Not only
the
communication center, major military base.
Military
you have several military, missile garrisons, if you like, around the city, plus a major radar station at top of the hill above Karaj. So it is obvious that they are trying to de facto, establish themselves a corridor towards Tehran in order to have it easier to reach the city with their airstrikes. That's why they have to neutralize as much as possible of Iranian air defenses and other military assets in the Karaj area.
Increasing quantity of Iranian missiles and so on could better be addressed to our Israeli friend. He may be able to advise us as to why it is happening, since he is a reservist for the last 15 years. As far as I am concerned, I think Iranian moves, as also perhaps Israeli moves, have been very calculated. It is not as if Iran, at least, is not going in for carpet bombing or mindless destructions. Its targets are selected very carefully.
Right.
Maybe it is finished with the first attacks it had on the US assets in the Gulf region. So now its concentration is on Israel and perhaps some of the ships that Americans may have in and around the area of Israel.
Okay.
So that is why there could be a reduction.
Jay, let's just bring in point number 2 also, because we've overlapped a little bit, where he said that as this conflict rages, US and Israel will strike key Iranian bases. But what will their targets be today? What will they focus on today? So Tom, let's start with you, because clearly the Israelis are moving in. They struck at Karaj and Tehran last evening. Karaj, you said, was a strong communications center. All of
Not only communication center, major military base.
Military
you have several military, missile garrisons, if you like, around the city, plus a major radar station on top of the hill above Karaj. So it is obvious that they are trying to de facto, establish themselves a corridor towards Tehran in order to have it easier to reach the city with their airstrikes. That's why they have to neutralize as much as possible of Iranian air defenses and other military assets in the Karaj area.
Increasing quantity of Iranian missiles and so on could better be addressed to our Israeli friend. He may be able to advise us as to why it is happening, since he is a reservist for the last 15 years. As far as I am concerned, I think Iranian moves, as also perhaps Israeli moves, have been very calculated. It is not as if Iran, at least, is not going in for carpet bombing or mindless destructions. Its targets are selected very carefully.
Right.
Maybe it is finished with the first attacks it had on the US assets in the Gulf region. So now its concentration is on Israel and perhaps some of the ships that Americans may have in and around the area of Israel.
Okay.
So that is why there could be a reduction.
Jay, let's just bring in point number 2 also, because we've overlapped a little bit, where he said that as this conflict rages, US and Israel will strike key Iranian bases. But what will their targets be today? What will they focus on today? So Tom, let's start with you, because clearly the Israelis are moving in. They struck at Karaj and Tehran last evening. Karaj, you said, was a strong communications center. All of
Not only communication center, major military base. You have several military, missile garrisons, if you like, around the city, plus
Hey there, you're watching Plain Speak. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. Let's quickly bring you the developments fresh at 6 p.m. This is part of our live and rolling coverage on the war in Iran. Let's get started. Multiple strikes jolt Tehran as US and Israeli forces crippled different parts of Tehran which were targeted by US-Israeli forces. Israel has used precision bombs to target Iranian defenses. Iran strikes US military communications, radar and satellite infrastructure across Middle East. Satellite imagery is already showing bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and UAE all have been damaged. Trump administration is all set to host top US defense contractors at the White House on 6th of March to press for faster weapons production. This as the Pentagon moves to rebuild stockpiles drained by recent strikes on Iran and other military operations. Iran's clerical assembly of experts has reportedly chosen Mujtaba Khamenei, son of the late Ali Khamenei, as the next supreme leader, or the Ayatollah, under reported pressure from the Revolutionary Guard's Corps. Mass mourning reported in Leh in India after the death of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Intelligence agencies have raised serious red flags over foreign radical elements now operating in India. Amid escalating geopolitical tensions, Indian markets are plunging as Sensex has dropped by over 1,750 points and Nifty is falling by 530. This while the rupee sinks 66 paise to an all-time low of 92.15 versus the US dollar. A reported torpedo strike from a submarine has sunk the Iranian naval ship Iris Dena near the coast of Sri Lanka. The ship had recently even participated in India-led naval exercises near Visakhapatnam last month. All right. Let's get you some more action-packed stories. This is a super exclusive ground report by CNN News 18 Sanjay Suri from Tel Aviv. And in fact, there's one also coming in from Rifat Abdullah, who's currently stationed in Jerusalem. Remember, CNN News 18 is the only channel which is bringing you the first from the ground level as far as Israel is concerned. Let's play out both these ground reports for you.
Well, here goes the siren again. A ballistic missile detected on its way here. Probably a good time to step into a shelter. And here you can see in the sky, an interceptor has been launched to take on an incoming missile. You can see that battle in there. You can hear the sounds coming in now. Big bangs coming in from the sky.
हम इस वक्त नॉर्थ ईस्ट जेरूसलम में हैं। अभी अभी सायरन बज गई है और लोग यहाँ पे जमा हो रहे हैं। अगर एक और सायरन बजती है तो लोग यहाँ पे अंडरग्राउंड बंकर्स में जाएंगे। आप देख सकते हैं कि इर्द गिर्द लोगों ने गाड़ियाँ खड़ी कर दी हैं और रुक गए हैं और अब वेट कर रहे हैं। अगर एक और सायरन बजती है तो सारे लोग जो है वो यहाँ पे अंडरग्राउंड बंकर्स में जाएंगे। तो लगातार सायरन्स बज रही, ईरान की तरफ से लगातार अटैक्स किए जा रहे हैं और दूसरी तरफ से हिजबुल्लाह भी कोशिश कर रहा है इसराइल को निशाना बनाने की। हालांकि इसराइल की तरफ से लगातार हिजबुल्लाह को भी निशाना बनाया जा रहा है। तो फिलहाल यहाँ पे इस वक्त ये जो वार्निंग है वो आ गई है, लेकिन अभी अगर एक और सायरन बजती है तो उसके बाद यहाँ पे ये सारे लोग जो इर्द गिर्द हैं ये बंकरों में जाएंगे अपने आप को बचाने के लिए। रिफत अब्दुल्ला, न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया, इसराइल। अभी अभी जो यहाँ पे सायरन बजी है उसके बाद धमाके ज़ोरदार हुए। या तो इंटरसेप्ट किया गया मिसाइल्स को जो लगातार ईरान की तरफ से अटैक किया जा रहा है और अब हम देख रहे हैं इर्द गिर्द जो हैं वो एम्बुलेंसेस की आवाज़ सुनाई दी जा रही है। हो सकता है कि कहीं पे मिसाइल गिरा हो, ये अभी क्लियर नहीं हो पाया है कि आखिर ये धमाके किस चीज़ के हुए, लेकिन ज़ोरदार धमाके हुए। या तो आसमान में उन मिसाइल्स को इंटरसेप्ट किया गया या कहीं पे वो कोई मिसाइल या रॉकेट जो है टारगेट पे लगा होगा। तो फिलहाल यहाँ पर जो ही सायरन बजी तो सारे लोग जो थे, मैं इस वक्त जेरूसलम में हूँ और सारे लोग जो हैं अंडरग्राउंड बंकर्स में गए थे, जो बॉम्ब शेल्टर हैं उनमें गए थे और अब धीरे धीरे वो वापस निकल रहे हैं क्योंकि जो सायरन दी गई थी या जो वार्निंग दी गई थी उसके बाद हमला हुआ है और या तो उस जो अटैक हुआ उसको इंटरसेप्ट करने के लिए ये आप सुन सकते हैं यहाँ पे आवाज़ एम्बुलेंस की। यहाँ पे मैं देख पा रहा हूँ 2-3 एम्बुलेंसेस जो हैं अभी अभी यहाँ से गई और इस वक्त एम्बुलेंसेस की सायरन हर तरफ से बज रही है। तो उसका मतलब है कि शायद हो सकता है कि यहाँ पे कहीं पे जो है नज़दीक ही ये अटैक करने की कोशिश की गई हो और अब अभी डिटेल्स जो हैं वो सामने नहीं आई है, लेकिन ये आप देख सकते हैं कि किस तरीके से यहाँ पे ये एम्बुलेंसेस जो हैं इर्द गिर्द घूम रही हैं इस वार्निंग और इस धमाके के बाद जोरदार धमाके हुए।
Right, so CNN News 18 is the only channel to be getting you ground reports from two power centers in Israel, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Now, force cannot truly solve problems. Instead, it will bring new problems and serious long-term consequences. Those have been the words of China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi as he dialed his Israeli counterpart Gideon Saar on Tuesday. He reminded the Israeli Foreign Minister that the attack on Iran came as negotiations between Washington and Tehran had already made significant progress, and that included addressing Israel's own security concerns. This as confirmed by China's foreign ministry in a statement. In fact, Russia and China have criticized the US and Israeli attacks on Iran. This with Moscow also saying it had seen no evidence that Tehran was developing nuclear weapons, and Beijing even demanding an immediate halt to the joint attacks. China is already bracing for the full economic impact of the US and Israel war with Iran. We all know that China's own energy supplies are severely disrupted, and this is perhaps one reason why the dragon is now spitting fire. Also remember, China is the largest importer of energy in the world, and the disruption to its oil imports caused by this conflict is indeed a potential Achilles heel for Beijing. That too, just weeks before President Donald Trump's highly anticipated state visit to China. Also because China imports 70% of its oil and gas, and a majority of its energy comes from the Persian Gulf via the Strait of Hormuz, a key choke point that's already been blocked by Iran. And even if the Chinese vessels have passage, the conflict in the Strait of Hormuz could very well impact its own procurement. In fact, the impact is not only being borne by China, it's majority of Asia, Europe, even the United States. So will the war in Iran and in the Middle East add another level of tension to Beijing and Washington, a relationship that's still recovering from the trade war? Let's break it down for you. China has already issued a strong warning to the US and Israel. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has dialed his Israeli counterpart Gideon Saar. Let me also tell you what he said. He's made some very powerful statements, by the way. He said that Beijing rejects any military strikes launched by Israel and the United States against Iran. That's an ally reaching out for its allied partner. Now, it's also gone on to say that any force cannot truly solve problems and can often create new crises and long-term instability. The real value of military power lies not on the battlefield, but in preventing the war, because China, of course, goes on to indicate that it's not just the country which is heavily relying on its energy procurements from Iran. Russia already remains sanctioned, but it's facing a delicate balancing act. And that's why China has actually issued a strong warning. It's saying that the real value of military power lies not on the battlefield, but in preventing this war. Let's also, in fact, break down for you what the kind of warnings are, the reasons why China is currently at this crossroads. It's also a major war. It's going to weaken Beijing's own superpower image. This because, remember, Beijing had significant clout in West Asia. On that note, let's also tell you the other reason why this is going to impact China. You're looking at a muted response which will undercut its own stance, and when especially it comes to Taiwan and even Tibet. Because if China chooses to react now, it will also give more leverage to the United States to attack China with regards to Taiwan. It's also unchecked intervention in Asia, which is going to set a narrative that China is currently fearing, because so far in West Asia, it was China actually holding that key bargaining chip over here. Inconsistency abroad will also weaken its own domestic position, especially when it comes to Tibet and Xinjiang, because remember, there are already human rights violation stories that are doing the rounds, and the US currently holds a lot of power over Xinjiang, especially when it comes to actually superseding China. Energy security and road corridors are also making neutrality costly, and this is a reason which is not just being given for China. You're looking at a lot of Asian countries, Europe, and even the US. Inaction is also going to risk denting China's own own influence as a Western counterweight. And that is why China is extremely rattled, even though, remember, their own vessels were receiving passage so far. But everybody has been talking about for how long will they be able to depend on that safe passage that the Chinese vessels have been receiving as far as the Strait of Hormuz is concerned, given that the conflict has indeed moved to the Strait of Hormuz. On that note, let's in fact quickly go across to my first guest. I'm joined in by Oren Marmorstein, who is the spokesperson of Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Many thanks to you, Oren, for joining in. On that note, I'm just going to come back to you. I'm getting in some information which I must take as of now. Breaking inputs coming in. This says Qatar has declared force majeure, further to the announcements made by Qatar Energy to stop production of liquefied natural gas and associated products. Qatar Energy has now declared a force majeure to its affected buyers. Qatar Energy values its relationships with all of its stakeholders. That's a statement that's coming in from Qatar, and will continue to communicate the latest available information. That certainly could spell more trouble for India. Let's quickly take that forward with Anand. Anand, given that India happens to be one of the largest buyers of LNG from Qatar, what could this mean for India?
Well, it's not just Qatar or India which is the largest buyer. Qatar supplies nearly 20% of the world's LNG requirements, and that's a big jolt to a lot of nations. But if this force majeure clause has been invoked by Qatar and it's stopped all LNG production, it's because there is clear and present threat from Iranian ballistic missiles that its facilities could be disrupted and attacked, and that could have a long-term energy impact. And they're rather hedging their losses and, of course, curbing their losses and saying, let's shut down production so that we don't invite any kind of Iranian firepower. And at least when things normalize, or perhaps when there is a certain level of control over what Iran could do, then they could start production again. Most nations do have a few weeks of stock in terms of the LNG produce and what they have sourced. But will this have perhaps an impact in the near term on nations, including Bharat? Yes, it will. In fact, even now, even as we speak, Akanksha, the threat is so real that another tanker near the ports of Oman around the Strait of Hormuz has been hit by a projectile. Now, what's the extent of damage? We don't know, but clearly any kind of commercial fare in that region is being targeted by the Iranians, who and this many strategists believe is actually a survival tactic. This is desperation and a survival methodology that the Iranians are putting into play, and for that, and that's the reason why Qatar, which is very close to their firing ground, has decided to shut down Qatar Energy, its LNG production facilities. Back to you.
Many thanks to you, Anand, for bringing us all those extensive details to that news story. Oren Marmorstein continues to stay with us on the broadcast. Many thanks to you, Oren, for joining in. Can you share with us the latest information as far as the impact on Tel Aviv and Jerusalem? You must have seen the reports that we are bringing from the ground level. It does seem like the situation remains on tenterhooks.
Thank you, Akasha. It's good to be with you on the show. Yes, we are under attack. Yes, there are missiles, ballistic missiles being fired, and they are aiming those missiles. The Iranian regime is aiming those missiles towards civilian centers, towards civilians. And that's, by the way, the entire difference, or one of the differences between Israel and the Iranian regime. They're aiming to kill as many civilians as possible. And by the way, we might run into some alarms during this show, but I would tell you this. I saw this headline going in your broadcasting, panic. There is no panic. There is no panic. The people in Israel, the civilians, and everyone are resilient. We are resilient. We know that this job must be done. We know that even if it's hard, even if there are casualties, we need to carry on and fulfill this job, because this is a threat not only to Israel, not only to the civilians, the citizens of Iran themselves, because they were massacred. they were massacred by the regime. It's a threat to the entire world. And you mentioned about those implications for the economy. This is one of the reasons why this global destabilizer, this global exporter of terror, i.e. the Iranian regime, this threat needs to be addressed.
Oren, what is the threat over here? What is it that Iran, Israel and the United States are looking at? Every day we are seeing a set of mixed messages coming out of both the countries. On one hand, there is a claim being made that we do not want a regime change. Your defense minister has also issued a statement saying that if the newly appointed Ayatollah is going to continue with the same beliefs that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei had, which is to target Israel and the United States, they will continue to bear the same brunt as did Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
Kasha, the objective of this operation is very clear. To remove an existential threat. Like I said, a threat to the civilians in Israel, to the state of Israel, a threat to the entire region. You've seen the pictures. The Iranian regime attacked, unprovoked, 8 different countries in the region, Arab countries. And of course, it's a threat, like I said, to their own civilians. They massacred thousands of Iranian civilians on the streets just a few weeks ago.
So are you saying that talks were never an option on the table? Why go ahead with talks? Because that's exactly, I'm going to come to the message that's been delivered by the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. He dialed Gideon Saar, the Honorable Foreign Minister in Israel, and the message he's in fact gone on to remind his counterpart was that you were in the middle of talks and things seem to be going in the favor of Israel as well, as were the assurances being given by Iran. Then why attack them? He's condemned the military action.
Those talks were empty talks. The only purpose, the only objective from the Iranian regime perspective for those talks was very simple: to buy time. The Iranian regime was trying to manipulate and to use these empty talks in order to buy time, and this time was supposed to allow them to tuck away, to put on the underground, to take all their facilities, all the infrastructures, all the capabilities regarding nuclear weapon and ballistic missiles, and to have immunity while tucking away those capabilities underground. So if this operation would be delayed, Iran would be nuclear with ballistic missile capabilities and immune. This is a threat not only to Israel, but to India, to the entire world. And this is something we are preventing.
My last question. The US president is receiving much criticism from the US Congress, particularly the Democrats, who are saying that this war was undertaken only because the US president believed that Iran could strike Israel and eventually even the United States. Your thoughts?
So I think we don't need to explain and to elaborate about the leadership of President Trump. President Trump knows exactly what he wants. And this is what makes him such a great president. And President Trump decides the decisions according to the American agenda. We are pushing forward an operation to secure the entire interest of the world, the entire interest of the region, and also the interest of Israel. And we're doing it together. This operation is being done together, jointly, Israel and the US.
I'm hoping that you'll also be able to protect the US allies, many of which are actually bearing the brunt of this in the Middle East. But Oren Mamostein, thank you so much for joining in with those invaluable insights. May peace prevail. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, getting in some more breaking inputs as we speak. This is with regards to some inputs that are coming in right now from France. France, in fact, is backing the war, but they've also warned Donald Trump that it may, in fact, lead to further escalation. They've backed Spain amid Donald Trump's trade threats. Remember, the US president is currently using trade as a leverage over its own allied nations, whether it is France or even Spain. The French president Emmanuel Macron has told Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez that France is supporting Spain, and it's also showing European solidarity, this after US economic threats as well. Let's quickly take that forward with our guests. I'm joined in by renowned strategic affairs expert Professor Brahma Chalani. I'm also joined in by Dr. Mordechai Kedar, who's a Middle East analyst, joining us from Tel Aviv in Israel, and Andrew K.P. Lung, who's a renowned China strategist. Many thanks to you, gentlemen, for joining in. Professor Chalani, if I could bring you in on this divide that we are seeing in the voices that are coming in from Israel and the United States on one hand, and then you have the other European voices like France, Germany, even the UK, and the latest to join in the chorus is Spain.
Well, the truth is that even within the US, Trump is facing questions about why he launched this war. Really, before has the American public opinion been so divided? Majority of Americans, according to latest opinion polls, against this latest war that Trump has launched. In the past, whenever the US has launched a war, and the US has a record of having waged many wars in the last 50 years, but the normal practice in the past was that when the US began a war, different factions in the US would unite and back the government. But this time, from the word go, we are seeing open dissent. So when the US itself is so divided, it's only normal that NATO would be divided, that international opinion would be divided. Certainly in the global south, there are not many takers for the American argument or justification that Trump administration is offering. In fact, the Trump administration's justification for the war keeps changing almost every day. Trump has no plan, no end state of the war. He launched the war, but he cannot control the trajectory of the war because now Iran is seeking revenge for the killing of its supreme leader. So neither can Trump control the trajectory